I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Town Council, Monday, June 15th. Please rise for the pledge.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, will you please take roll?
Mayor LaKind,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Here.
Abbott, Councilmember Fiorito,
Present.
Councilmember Kemple.
Here.
Councilmember Chronic,
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here. Any disclosures of conflicts of interest? Great. We'll move on. We have anybody who would like to speak to items in the consent agenda?
I was just curious on the purchase of a crack seal machine, just the cost and then how long it's going to.
Oh yeah, so the cost was $56,538. If we can get it to them tomorrow, if you guys approve it tonight, we should get it in about a month in our hands, which is still in the good season for us to perform. Our streets crew, once we get it, is gonna pretty much utilize it right away.
Okay, any other questions? And consent. And if not, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Give it verbal. The mouse. Passes 7-0. Public comment. Individuals attending in person may raise their hand to indicate their desire to comment. Individuals attending via Teams may raise their hand digitally to comment via connection. Lower your hand when finished with your comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comments are for items that are not on the agenda here in Town Hall that would like to. Yes, sir. You could also sign in when you get there and let us know who you are.
My name is Patrick Doherty. I live at 418 McShane Place. And I've lived here since 2002. Plant a lot of trees in my yard. And so this is kind of a show and tell here. Up to the conservation. And I planted good for about 8 years. Timber pine. Also did a good for a started eating them. They were big enough. Lower branches. Vanderwolf pine. Planted them. The first two were stripped completely. like this. Problem I see, that road going to the lake. And it's 4 of these. And I'm sorry. It didn't take long, these trees to disappear. Pretty darn sure those trees. Nailed the arborist. Here's my experience. I sent him pictures of the tree. He's, we've done our due diligence. Walks by him every day. Problem is, winter, deer get hungry and they eat. So my suggestion was to just plant it. Put them somewhere else. Lives along that area. Conservation easement. Deer up and down that little sidewalk. See it all the time. This is what's going to happen. And looking at the price tags on it, it's about $1,800. You know, that's flowers. So what I'm saying is, you dig them up, they get rooted in, and plant something else. For, I have a degree in horticulture. The reason I'm up here. Hate to see. All I got to say.
Thank you.
Take it under advisement.
Anybody else in town hall that would like?
My name is Jaden Anderson, and I am one of the properties, Forest Lakes Development Center. We have issues with trespassers. Our fence cut 8 times, took a chainsaw through about 800 yards. We're also agricultural tree. It's been a huge fight with them. One of the neighbors down, they had said something to 2 of the mountain bikers this past. I'm not the owner of the land, my father-in-law is, but I'm one of the ranch hands that handles everything. Big inconvenience to sit there and fix the fence for hours and hours. This,
It's Forest Lakes Development Center.
I live off of Spats Road.
Forest Lakes isn't in the town. Yeah, it's El Paso County. Have you?
Yes. Multiple times. One of the neighbors down there, he put trail cams. They destroyed them. And he's got photos of them. Trail cams up. But it's just an issue of constantly fixing the fence and chainsaws, tree cutting. I've gotten with the park rangers at a meeting about 3 months ago they had here. And I showed them the photos of all the trees cut down, limbs cut, trails made, mountain bike trails. Just hundreds of footprints when it was snowing outside.
I don't know. I appreciate you letting us know. But no other than law enforcement and we can do from a
Yes, sure.
conversation.
Yes, sir. Do that. Yes, sir. It's more just me wanting to bring it to the attention. Sure. Because it's been an ongoing problem for about, I know my father-in-law said since he bought the property back in 2012. I'm doing the property as of, I think, 2024.
What's the cross street? I'm looking at the Google maps right now. Right.
That's in,
Is it Remuda? Further west.
I believe so, sir. We can look at. Yeah, we're the 80 acres backed up next to Fall Mountain Farms.
Okay, I got you.
So we're on the left side, so we directly fence that development down there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else in town hall that would like to speak? Anybody online?
See no hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, then we will close public comment, move on to our oaths of office. We have 3 officers, Chief Regan, Cameron Brown, Brandon Cordova, and Sergeant Josh Teeples. Did I say that right?
You did.
First, I want to address the elephant in the room, and that's my face. I shaved this morning after a very long time, and my skin did not like it. So I'm okay. Don't worry about me. I don't normally look like this, but I'm going to be in photos and stuff. I figured I'd just get that out of the way.
I just want to say you said it was an elephant face, not any of us.
I didn't know this was going to be commented on. I thought I was just going to, here, come this way a little bit. All right. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution and laws of the United States of America and the state of Colorado, and to the ordinances of the town of Monument, and that I will defend and protect the lives, safety and property of the people of Monument, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge. You can read that. That's why I gave you that.
Safely and impartially discharge
The duties of the office of peace officer,
the duties of peace officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Want to have whoever's pinning your badge on, come on up. Our badge pinners can come up. Cameron, Brent. This isn't easy, so take your time.
If you don't draw blood, it doesn't count. You have to do it again. Doesn't matter. You still have to draw blood.
See? Watch your fingers. There you go. Oh. All right. Traditionally, you guys would just say a little bit about yourself, okay?
My name's Cameron Brown. I'm coming from parole out of Denver. I was in the gangs unit. Prior to that, my experience was I was in the Marine Corps. I did 2 tours overseas. I'm Colorado native, born and raised in the Springs. And that's all I got right now.
I'm Brandon Cordova, Colorado native, coming from Pueblo PD. Before that, I did wealth management in Springs, so I worked for various companies. I was in the National Guard for 4 years, infantry, and originally from the San Luis Valley, but lived in and pretty much grew up in Colorado Springs.
Congratulations. Josh? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Josh Teebles,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and bear
that I will support and bear
true faith and allegiance
true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution and laws
to the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the state of Colorado,
and the state of Colorado,
and to the ordinances of the town of Monument,
and to the ordinances of the town of Monument,
and that I will defend and protect the lives,
and that I will defend and protect the lives,
safety, and property
safety, and property
of the people of Monument,
of the people of Monument,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
the duties of the office of sergeant
the duties of the office of sergeant
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. You got the easier shirt. That's a lieutenant. When you make a lieutenant. Congratulations. So earlier this year, we had a fairly tenured sergeant leave us for another department. That was Josh Marks, and we did a test for sergeant promotions, and Josh was the #1 candidate from our testing process. We do have a list in case we have any other sergeants, but you did such a great job. Very proud of you. I do want you to take a minute, just to let everybody know about yourself.
Sure. So yeah, I moved to Colorado in 06 for college, met my wife, and we've been in the metro area since then. Started as a police officer in Aurora back in 2017, and I spent time before that in business, different facets of working in business. And then I've been with the Monument Police Department since 24, November of 24. So I'm at a year and 7 months working here in Monument. And just excited for this opportunity and to continue to grow with the town.
Thank you. $33. Yeah. The sergeant, obviously sergeant promotion didn't add anybody, but we're backfilling behind them. Up, chief.
And your raise. All right, next up, we have several presentations. First one up is use tax survey that's being presented by Magellan Strategies. Oh, she's not here? Okay.
Courtney, can you hear us okay? Can you give us a hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Fire. Okay. Just let me know when you want me to continue on with the slides.
I can't actually see, oh, and I've got a bad echo. I can't actually see the slides.
Who's controlling the slides?
I.
Can the guest not control the slides? But if she has it, if she's granted elevated access, this is what I can't deal with this right now. If she's granted the right access, she can present her own screen and her slides.
Yeah, but she did not coordinate that.
Okay.
You should be able to see them now.
Yep, I'm still getting a really bad echo though. I think it's coming from the microphone.
Go ahead and just tell me next slide and I'm turning off the audience mic.
Okay. Yeah, so let me introduce myself. My name's Courtney Sievers. I work with Magellan Strategies. We are a public opinion firm just based out of Broomfield, Colorado, so just north of you all. We conducted this survey for the town of Monument regarding a potential use tax ballot measure survey. The survey was conducted in May. If you want to go to the next slide. These are the registration and turnout demographics for the town of Monument. And why this is so important is we need to understand exactly who we expect to turn out to vote this November. And so you'll see registration numbers there on the left in that first column on the left. And really what I want to focus on here is 2022 numbers and slightly into 2024 numbers. And even more so focus on the 2022 age group numbers. This is what we expect turnout to look like this November for a potential ballot measure for the town of Monument. You can see a big difference between those odd years versus the midterm in 22 versus the presidential election in 24. And so we really anticipate, and usually midterm elections stay the same from year to year, midterm to midterm. However, based on President Trump's first term, we did see higher presidential turnout numbers in both the presidential year as well as his first midterm and his first term as president. And so we're expecting those numbers to be really similar between 22 and 24. So what does that mean exactly for the town of Monument? That means a younger demographic turning out to vote, those 18 to 34-year-olds making anywhere between 17 and 23% of what we expect turnout to be. And it means less of those seniors because it has to come from somewhere. So 21% in 22 compared to roughly 20%, very similar in 2024. But you can see the difference there from an odd year to a midterm to a presidential election. And so the reason I want to point that out, because as we go through these numbers, you'll see I will break it out by age group. And so that you can see some of those characteristics by subgroup as we go through these numbers of what to expect for this year's turnout, as well as if you decide not to move forward with this ballot measure, where support is, what that looks like among these subgroups, and understanding what these subgroups look like when they turn out to vote. Next slide. So the methodology and the slide and the survey itself, the survey was conducted from May 13th to May 19th of 2026 of this year. We interviewed 636 voters within the town of Monument. That gave us a margin of error of 3.76% at the 95% confidence interval. Again, this survey data is weighted to represent what we expect turnout to be for the midterm election this November. Each of our, to explain the text message there on the left, our surveys are conducted by pulling a random sample of voters from the Colorado statewide voter file, in which we pull out the town of Monument voters and pull a random sample of those town of Monument voters. Each of those voters will receive a text message with a unique link included in that text message, inviting them to participate in the survey. That unique link has an ID to it so that we know exactly who's taking the survey and making sure that that link doesn't get spread around or sent to other individuals or sent on social media or anything like that. We can protect that on the backside, making sure that only one person, those that we sent the survey to, is actually participating in the survey. And so that's an example of that text message there on the left. Next slide. Just some key takeaways that we figured from the survey itself. There is initial opposition to the use tax measure, and that shifts dramatically once voters receive more information. And we do see this, to be honest, with a use tax of any kind, mainly because voters are just not as aware of what a use tax is and what exactly that is taxing. And so once voters are informed of what a use tax is, once they're informed what that money is going to go towards, you usually see that shift from what we call call the uninformed to the informed support levels. And so as we go through this, I'll explain that and go a little bit deeper into that. But at the beginning, before voters are informed of what a use tax is or what that funding would go towards, support starts at about 39%. And then once they're informed of what that funding would go towards, who that funding would impact or what that tax would impact, we see a positive swing of 25 points, going up with support increasing to 64%. And so we'll go through that here just slightly. But I really do want to point out that most people are unaware really what that use tax is and how it is impacted. Voters strongly support infrastructure investment, particularly when tied to growth and development impacts. What do I mean by that? Residents really expressed broad concern about roads and traffic, and especially really wanted to finish such projects such as Jackson Creek Parkway. Really the biggest messages that were impacting support when it came to this use tax was funding being dedicated only to roads, streets, and bridges and infrastructure, specifically going to that, as well as completing again that Jackson Creek Parkway widening project. And then the fact that developers and builders were the ones that were going to bear more of that cost based on construction material purchases, and voters being educated of what that use tax actually looks like. Again, open-ended responses reinforce that residents believe the growth should pay for itself, that those developers, that growth and development that's happening within the town should pay for that expansion and for that infrastructure impact. Next slide. Last but not least, just one other takeaway here. Trust and accountability remain really the largest potential vulnerabilities for the measure. And what do I mean by that? That really comes down to just residents generally approve of the town services that you all are providing, as well as the Public Works Department and the performance they have. Oh, excuse me. And then just opposition really comes down to town leadership and concerns about financial management, as well as just overall tax increases in general. Next slide. Let's jump into some of these numbers. First and foremost, since the town of Monument would be the one asking for this ballot measure, we did an approval rating on the job the town of Monument is doing providing those services. Again, this is a good approval number. 64% of respondents saying that they approve of the job the town is doing, just less than a quarter, 23% saying they disapprove. And you can see really across the board here by subgroup, over 55%, no matter what that subgroup is. Next slide. Do you think the town of Monument has the financial resources to provide an acceptable level of town services? Really, this comes into play because we want to understand perception of voters. We want to understand if they believe that you have a lot of funding, a lot of money in the bank, and what that perception is. 59% of voters believe that you do have the financial resources. A quarter believe that you do not. And you can see some differences there on intensity as well. But really just over 50%, no matter the subgroup here, with no huge differences other than gender. You can see that 10-point difference between men and women, where men believe you have a higher number of those financial resources. Next slide. This is another question that we always want to ask just to understand perception and trust among voters. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? The town of Monument is fiscally responsible and spends taxpayer money wisely. 49% said that they agree with that statement, 31% disagree, and just 1 in 5, 20% say that they are unsure, no opinion. I do want to point out a couple things on this slide. One, that 20% unsure, no opinion is very common. Typically, we see about 15 to 25% of respondents saying that they are unsure or have no opinion on this question. And really, the one thing that we want to make sure is that ratio between agree, disagree. And so since we have a larger number of unsure, no opinion, we want to make sure that that ratio is at least above a 1-to-1 ratio of agree to disagree, in which you're higher than that, 49% to 31%. And so even though this is below 50%, again, that ratio is still good moving forward. But really you can see the one big difference here is among age group, where that younger demographic, less of them agree with that statement compared to those seniors, where 60% of seniors agree that the town of Monument is fiscally responsible. Next slide. Again, since we're looking at a tax for roads, bridges, and infrastructure, we just need to have the understanding of that perception. So how would you rate the condition of the major streets, roads, and bridges in the town of Monument? 49%, just under half, said either excellent or good. 15% said poor, with 36% saying fair, kind of in the middle there. And again, this is just to understand and gauge that perception of how roads are, and knowing that you're looking to increase funding for roads specifically. Next slide. Again, we also wanted to ask just an approval on the Town of Monument Public Works Department, as they are the ones that will be maintaining the town's streets, bridges, and roads. 66% approve of the job that they're doing, 31% disapprove. So that again is a good approval number as you look forward at a potential ballot measure for this use tax. Next slide. Again, looking more at the financial resources, looking narrower and making it more specific, do you think the town of Monument has the financial resources needed to adequately maintain, repair, and improve town streets, roads, and bridges? 62% of voters do believe that you have those financial resources. We're just under a quarter, 23% do not believe that. And so that's just, again, important to understand voter perception as you're looking to ask for a tax increase to go towards streets, roads, and that infrastructure aspect. Next slide. We did ask a question in here, just kind of looking ahead at other programs. Which of the following options would you prefer the town of Monument use to pay for these services and programs? So when looking at parks, trails, and open space versus roads, streets, and bridges and town facilities, we asked voters which of a tax increase would they prefer to pay for it? Sales, property, lodging, a use tax, or unsure. And you can see really here, kind of the top here, just roughly 20 to 25% on all three, parks, roads, and facilities, are right around that 25% mark for sales tax. It goes slightly lower on the property tax side, with about 1 in 5 saying that they would support a property tax. And then again, as you kind of go down, lodging tax is just shy of that. And then a use tax being in that 10 to a 12% mark on the use tax side. And again, this is before voters really understand what a use tax is. We have not educated them on what a use tax is. This is really just to gauge support levels on which tax that they would support moving forward to fund these three options and services. Next slide. So we then asked them just a basic support oppose question on, and what we call the uninformed, again, before they know anything of what a use tax is or what the funding would go towards. We just asked them, would they support or oppose a 1.5% increase to the use tax as a ballot measure this November? And so next slide. Oh. There we go. Again, just generally speaking, would you support or oppose that local use tax increase of 1.5%? This starts, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, 39% said that they would support increasing that use tax. 55% say that they would start out opposing that use tax. And you can see 33% of those saying that they would strongly oppose that increase in use tax. And really, it's kind of across the board here on spectrum. But you can see that difference among age group, which is why I pointed out those demographic differences there at the beginning, where that younger demographic is not as supportive for a use tax compared to those 65 and older, at 51% saying that they would support the use tax. And then you can see Democrats there at 53% saying that they would support the use tax as well. So it does start off there lower at 39%. Next slide. We then asked voters and respondents to read 6 information questions about what the funding would go towards, what exactly a use tax is, and a couple specific projects that we wanted to throw in there to really have them understand what this funding would go towards. After they read that information, we asked them, would they be more likely to support the increase of use tax, or would they be more likely to oppose it? And so there were 6 information questions. And next slide. 6 information questions that voters read, and these are ranked in order of more likely to support. And so 5 of these are over 50%. Really, there are 3 that are that top at 68 and 64, and then this next third one on the next slide. But really, it comes down to the funding can only be used for road, street, and bridge maintenance. The funding cannot be used for anything else. Second here on the list is the fact that the town would be able to complete that Jackson Creek Parkway project to widen the park Parkway from Higbee Road to Fat Tire Drive, and that the ballot measure would allow the town to do that. Those are the top two messages. Next slide. Third, still above 60%, is the fact that the use tax typically impacts developers and builders more frequently and more noticeably due to the fact that they are purchasing building materials from out of state, and just kind of explaining how that impacts builders and developers. Fourth, there is the fact that the bridge at Mount Herman Road would be able to be updated. And then the last two, if you go to the next slide, one's right at 50% and then just below 50%. These are still good messages, just not as strong as the other four, but really explaining that the town of Monument currently has the 3.5% sales tax and that the town is considering increasing the use tax by 1.5 to bring it up to that same rate at 3.5 as the sales tax. 50% of respondents would be more likely to support it, knowing that information. And then last but not least, just the fact again that a sales tax is paid or a use tax is paid at the time you buy something in a store, excuse me, I'm reading that wrong. Sales tax is paid at the time that you buy something on the store online, where the use tax is different, is not charged at the time of purchase. It's typically purchases like construction materials and permits that the buyer is responsible at a later date, and kind of explaining more of what a use tax is. Next slide. Excuse me. So again, after voters and respondents read those 6 information questions, we asked them again how they would feel if they would support or oppose increasing that use tax by 1.5% to make it equal with the sales tax. The next slide. Knowing that information, we can see a big jump here, again, about 25 points. Would you support or oppose increasing that local use tax by 1.5%? Jumps to 64% support from 39% and lowers to 31% oppose with 5% undecided or unsure. And you can see that intensity really shift with now a quarter saying that they strongly support increasing that use tax, and then that strongly opposed dropping from 33% to 19%. The other thing that's important to point out here is every subgroup is above 50%, with more than 20 years, those just being a little bit less supportive, but they are over that 50% threshold. And really the rest of them are over 55%, no matter what subgroup you can look, no matter which subgroup you look at. And the other thing that I want to point out here is those age ranges. You can see where before those seniors were much more supportive compared to that middle and younger demographic. Now they're all pretty equally tied. Next slide, please. And then we did ask verbatim responses of why you would support the ballot measure to increase the use tax by 1.5%. Again, first and foremost, the most common theme was that developers and builders should pay more for the cost of growth and infrastructure, and that understanding that they need to pay their fair share. There's an understanding that roads, bridges, and infrastructure need major improvements, and they liked the fact that this money would be going towards the Jackson Creek Parkway expansion, and just helping across the board with those improvements. There's a belief that the use tax is viewed as fairer than raising property or sales taxes on residents specifically. And again, coming back to who would actually be paying more towards this use tax versus the residents. And then just a feeling of rapid growth and overdevelopment or changing monument, and the growth should help pay for itself, again, like I mentioned beforehand. And then last but not least, just support depends on that accountability and dedicating funds to road and infrastructure only. And the fact that that is only where the funding can go, it can't go to anything else. Next slide. Among those voters that said that they would oppose the ballot measure to increase the use tax, many came back to the fact that taxes are too high already. Residents can't afford more tax increases, just that common theme of inflation and cost of living. And you're always going to have that voters are not going to support. You're always going to have a handful that are not going to support any sort of new taxes. Second here, and another theme is just that skepticism among leadership, distrust in town leadership, spending and financial management, and just more specifically calling out for audits, better budgeting, and clear accounting and more transparency. Third here on the list is just that growth and development are a real problem and the belief that developers should pay directly, and felt like this is not really enough without the proper planning that's already taken place, as well as the growth that's already taken place. They believe that among those that would oppose the use tax, there is a belief that the tax would ultimately increase housing costs and that the housing costs would be passed on to the consumers purchasing those houses. And then last but not least, just an opposition to continued growth and that there's that concern that Monument is losing its small town character. And that's pretty common as you read through these verbatim responses. Next slide. This slide again just shows that difference from the uninformed with that 25-point increase on support from the uninformed to the informed. And it just shows that it comes straight from the opposition side, that unsure does not move really at all. Next slide. The rest are just the survey demographics of what the survey looked like based on gender, race, party, age, all of those demographics as well. So with that, I will open it up to any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you very much. Council, questions to Magellan on the report and any of the data points? Would you like to review any of them?
I just want to say that I'm really grateful the way that you walked people through this, because the instant reaction would always be, and probably should always be, we don't want any increase in taxes. But when you explain, you know, how this works and who is actually paying for it, and it's a direct result of impacts to the town, and you walk them through it, I think I wish more surveys were done this way. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no problem. And we've seen that across the state with use tax, especially of just that need to really educate of what that looks like. So I appreciate the comment.
We've been saying for quite some time that developers need to pay their way. So I'm not surprised at the results. At some point, we're going to have a use tax proposed to us. I really think it should be a clear message to developers that they're going to pay their way if they want to develop a monument. There's a sentiment online that I keep seeing repeated that we are going to be the next Castle Rock. I don't know that we can figuratively be the next Castle Rock, but there's a perception. And the only way to prevent that is to possibly price development to a point that Castle Rock is charging, because they are charging considerably amount more money in the development process and the taxes and the fees than we charge. So maybe we need to put ourselves at that level to help slow things down and make it more methodical. I know we could use the growth and the retail tax that comes from that, but to what point, to what end? So I think that this survey is very telling, and we should be definitely listening to it since we spent money on it. Anybody else? Okay, then, does staff have any comments?
Is there any direct?
What does council want to do? Do we want to get the use tax on the ballot for November?
What's the cutoff?
It's coming up August. Well, right, August.
I think it's important to take this information and turn it around and submit a ballot to the residents of Monument that follows this or based on the survey to say this is one tool that we have to focus the development. It won't stop it, but it will focus it, and then also, as the respondents have shown, will help development, will encourage development to pay for the increase in the infrastructure use.
By the way, this isn't penalizing anybody.
No, it's
This
not.
is getting the sales tax, because you can, when you submit your plans, you place a value of which is generally, I guess, generally underestimated the price of what the construction will cost. That's just nature of it. And the use tax is supposed to be in lieu of sales tax. And this is under sales tax. So everybody that lives and or shops here pays a higher sales tax than most of these development projects do. So it just gets it in
Yeah,
line.
and it should be, the use tax should be equal to the sales tax.
Correct.
Would we see the language that was gonna go on the ballot first?
We have
Yeah,
to
that-
approve it.
Yeah, you would have to approve that.
Just asking out loud to make sure.
And CSLAC was very in support of this, so this was one of the top items that they felt needed to be done.
Would we also have some kind of awareness campaign
Reading my
as we
mind.
move forward?
Yep.
I think not only should these results be obviously posted on the town website, but there should be a concerted effort to market this with the proper messaging to make sure people know it's coming well in advance and that the results are showing positive cases to
Trends.
to put this on the ballot so they know.
Yeah, we always publish the results of our survey. We do have to be careful with how we do market something like this. But we can certainly put education information out.
Right, we can't say vote yes or no.
Correct.
Ashley's over there shaking her head.
Okay,
We
then
know.
you have direction? Okay. Next up, we have a presentation on House Bill 261001, which was a housing development on qualifying properties. This should be fun.
Doug from my office is going to be doing that since he prepared the outline for you. So he'll
Okay.
be on.
I am on, if you can hear me.
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, council. I'm here to educate you on the recently passed House Bill 261001, also known as the Home Act. There's been several bills where the state legislature has tried to address affordable housing issues in the state. They all have their good and bad points. There's certainly a question about how the state is able to keep on passing laws in what are generally local matters. For instance, zoning is typically held to be a local issue to be regulated by local towns, but there's a copious explanation at the start of the act, which I included in the packet to explain why the state believes that this is an issue of mixed concern where they're able to bring in legislation. The Home Act, for the most part, is trying to limit the subjective decision-making of the town. It doesn't have any specific code language that has to be applied, unlike, for instance, the turf restrictions that were adopted earlier on this year. It brings in a definition of qualifying property that's really a qualifying entity. So they're trying to make it more possible for nonprofit organizations with histories of affordable housing. For some reason, nonprofit organizations that provide public transport, other people with agreements with those nonprofit organizations, and also school districts, state colleges and universities, housing authorities, or again, regional or local transportation districts. If one of those entities owns a parcel of 5 acres and would like to do some kind of affordable housing, the Act tries to make it difficult for the town to stop the development, although you're still allowed to apply your local regulations, building codes, those sorts of things. Because it's not specific language in the Act that's required to be adopted, It's difficult to know exactly how the details will be worked out. There is meant to be more guidance published by the state at some point. Obviously, we're doing a rewrite of Title 18 and we'll try and incorporate as much of this as we can so we don't have to come back with multiple ordinances. The act goes on to exempt certain property, which I think is important to consider. Monument obviously isn't a very large geographic jurisdiction, so finding 5-acre parcels that won't be exempt from the requirements of this act will be somewhat challenging. Dan and Ungerleider and I talked about it a little. So for instance, you don't have to approve a project that has no utility service. If it's on well water or not connected to sewer service, then the parcel can't be developed under this act. It doesn't apply to anything zoned industrial or agricultural and some other zoning. So it really seems to be driven at either residential zone districts or mixed use or commercial zoning. You also can't use this act to develop anything within a floodway for obvious reasons. So that will severely impact its applicability to monument. Much of your undeveloped land is within floodways or impacted by floodways. And it also can't impact any historical district. So if you have historic zoning or zone districts in your town, then developers can't use this to develop affordable housing. The main one of the major problems I see with the implementation of this act is, as I said, it tries to move everything that is applicable into an administrative review. Rightly or wrongly, there seems to be a belief that if staff are the people approving a project, then they're less likely to have subjective knee-jerk reactions or NIMBYism against it. Of course, this puts more pressure on town staff, planning departments, if they're being forced to approve projects that are, required to be approved by state law. They don't have the ability to go to their town council, their planning commission, and discuss what's going on, why they're approving it. So support from town staff, maybe we can work in some way to still bring things for review in front of planning commission, much like a location and extent review that already applies for other government entities. You can get advice from a planning commission, so at least you have some public forum where the developer has to show up, talk to a public body, have public hearings and those sorts of things. There's also some interesting restrictions at the end of the act. For some reason, the legislature has determined that 38 feet tall is a perfectly acceptable height for a building. So unless you don't have a fire engine that can put out a fire at 38 feet, you can't deny a project based on a height restriction, provided the building is less than 38 feet. You can't disallow the construction of a residential development based on the number of dwelling units, except in accordance with the act. So the overall, you can still regulate the number of bedrooms, the number of dwelling units. I guess there's other restrictions that might be in town code that are applicable. General density, EQRs for water service, those might all still be acceptable. With any new piece of legislation, we don't really know how far the state will push it. Certainly we've had pushback on some of the codes we've adopted recently and received back letters that they're not entirely happy with the solutions we've come up with. And you can also, you're not allowed to deny daycares and recreational, social, or educational services provided by community associations. So I guess someone down at the state legislature decided that if you're going to have clusters of affordable housing, you should also have childcare, which is another perennial bugbear of the state, that childcare costs are high and difficult to access. So there's not specific language that needs to be adopted into code at any particular time. There is a provision that you don't have to comply with the law, or you get an extension for compliance with the law if you are actively adopting code language in accordance with the act. So that kind of puts a soft deadline of, I believe it's December 1st, 2027 on taking some action of this. We're waiting on more information from the state on defining things like what is a qualified non-profit organization that provides affordable housing. I'm assuming they're going to write a definition that fits Habitat for Humanity and some of the other organizations I'm sure you've heard of. But yeah, it's a very long act to do several important things. The application of it, it's not quite clear at this point without that guidance from the state. And because the act doesn't contain specific code language, there's not really anything, well, other than the 5 acres and things like that. But we don't have the same direction on what to incorporate into our code, just that we're not allowed to deny projects for certain things.
I didn't see in the act where they defined affordable.
Yeah, you do have to flip through a long explanation.
Is it in there? I just missed it. Because I sat through, Steve and I sat through this during our legislative workshops with our lobbyist, which of course we opposed this act. Mostly on the grounds that they keep overstepping their authority on home rule municipalities. But of course, they don't really define things. Also, have we figured out if there's been any lawsuits against the state for this since it's been implemented?
I haven't seen any headlines. Obviously, it was only passed this year, and there's a pretty long timeline for adoption, which means that no one's under any certain pressure to file a lawsuit straight away. Certainly, so under the home rule analysis, the courts decide on a case-by-case basis if an issue is of local, mixed, or statewide concern. Zoning has typically been held as a matter of local concern. However, we also have factors like we have other issues that could be construed as zoning, but have been found to be of mixed concern. Noise limits, the Noise Abatement Act would be one example. We also have, I'm blanking on it. Location and extent rules that allow one agency to overrule the zoning of another jurisdiction.
What about punishments for not complying? Did the state indicate what they were going to, take away from the municipalities if they don't comply?
Not in this bill. I don't believe that there's any. I mean, I guess if you deny a project, then the developer would have recourse through the courts to say that you're, not in compliance with state law. So there's always an enforcement provision for, an arbitrary decision, a 106 challenge. So as far as I can tell, there's not any specific penalties, but if you deny the project, and that's the way the statute is effectively written, if you deny a project based on one of the things in the act, then you're breaking the
or you're not in compliance with the act. So the onus is kind of on the town to work out how to write into their ordinances how to comply with the act so that staff know how to do the review.
Okay, my last question is, when you were working with planning and Mr. Ungerleider, did you come up with a number of amount of properties that this would fall under?
We did not. It was a brief discussion as we were talking about how we felt this would truly impact development within the town. You already have a lot of annexation agreements, for instance. So one of the exemptions for property is whether or not there's an annexation agreement that limits development. I think one that I was looking at recently was the Connexus Master Development Agreement. And, the Master Annexation Agreement, those often have a unit restriction or a dwelling unit restriction or some kind of household restriction. They also often limit housing based on EQRs for water. So that's probably going to allow you to regulate projects based on how they were annexed into the town.
So once again, the state has no idea how to create affordable housing.
Especially if they're not paying for it.
Right. And, because we've, through these construction defect lawsuits, have completely eliminated any and all competition between condo developers and apartment owners, of which I won't get on my soapbox about. They continue to try to do this with preventing municipalities from creating density loss. And all that ever does is just make the landowner richer, because every single thing that gets built is going to get sold at market price. What worries me about this in particular isn't so much about the land that's around the town that's zoned, because that's privately owned and probably we won't have too many issues with it. But we do have a fair amount of nonprofit owned land through the school district, downtown, in our downtown zone district, which is a special district. And that could be a potential problem. So when I see on here that says if we're actively updating our zoning and development code, we're updating our comprehensive plan, and we have time to at least till December 31st, 2027. I think we need to push whatever we do out as far as we can in order to get as solid code as we can to prevent a misuse of our current zoning regulations. So that would be my suggestion.
On the school-owned land is already potentially able to develop under a location and extent review. As a separate political jurisdiction, they have their own rules through the school district, the school title. So they have the ability to develop to some extent already.
But
This would, of course,
could they build apartment units on school property without development review?
so if they are required to go through location extent, they get development review. The technicality is that if planning commission denies them, their appeal rights go to their own school board, their own public officials, not the town public officials.
So basically, for any development that they want to do on school-owned property, they can do anything they want currently?
Well, they've got their own restrictions.
Yeah, but they still have to meet road design and I mean, there's design standards that even we follow that are above us that count. We just don't randomly allow approval from a landowner to do what they want without meeting certain criteria.
Correct. So for instance, a school district can't replat its property that's something that stays. Oh, Dan's got.
Oh, you can see me. Hi. So as Mayor Pro Tem King was saying, is we're at the right we're at the right place. We're doing all the right things to prepare for this. There are things that we can discuss um, to make sure that there are protections in place. At the same time, we do need to talk about housing affordability as we already have, and we'll be doing that as part of our housing plan in the comprehensive plan. As we're going through the Chapter 18 update in its two phases, we'll talk about this as well. I don't think it's really appropriate for us to go through all the things we can do to prevent it in this room. But I can assure you that as we're going through the process, we'll be looking at each of the different methods that could be used to protect. As Mayor LaKine said, I mean, there are the road standards, right-of-way improvements, utilities. There's other things we could be looking at, and Doug also mentioned some of those. So we'll take a look at those as we're moving forward. And do our best to make sure that we're maintaining local control, or at least to not have an adverse impact on mislocated development or development that doesn't take into account of streets and utilities and parks and schools and so on. It's just placed there for to just address one subject. So we will keep an eye on it, and we'll continue to report to you as we move forward.
I have a question on this so-called administrative review. So remind me, when a development comes up for formal review, one of the things that gets reviewed is, or one of the groups that reviews it is the fire department. And they review it for access, emergency access and emergency evacuation, etc. And then one of the reviews is how the development is going to account for the increase in water discharge, call it, because presumably there's more concrete and less water is being soaked by the ground. Does this administrative review include those two critical elements?
It includes those and several others. Those are other codes and restrictions that'll have an impact on any development, and we'll take a look at those as part of that administrative review. I think that the difference between administrative and otherwise is it doesn't come to you. It doesn't go through a plan commission and a council review period. It's reviewed similar to the Maverick development, our apartment development over in Higbee. That was at right zoning, and it was constructed out there, and it was approved by staff under the current code. It did not require public hearing, did not require any specific or special concessions, and therefore it didn't require the opportunity for you to provide subjective, as the state might call it, or I think Doug referred to as subjective review.
So administrative review doesn't mean that it's not complying with code. It's not, they get to miss a step. Administrative review just means that there's not a political decision made. The staff would have to go through, check compliance with all the code, all the applicable regulations. You're right, the stormwater is, especially in Monument, a big deal. So you'd still have all the ability to regulate through the town planning staff. What the legislature appears to be motivated by is a belief that, NIMBYism, the not in my backyard type thing, where people aren't deciding whether or not a project will comply with law or local code. They're deciding whether or not they like the project. So if someone wants to build, one of these affordable housing developments in a location where it would meet all code and it would be objectively, it would meet all the requirements, would a planning commission or a town council look at the development and say, Yeah, but we just don't want that type of development in that location. Our code doesn't ban it, but we don't like it. So the feeling is that staff, because they have to follow the code to the letter, the staff would not have the discretion to deny a project based on how they feel it's suitable for the location, as long as it complies with the code, and as restricted by the act, of course, then the development would be approved, and it would also be approved more quickly. One of the concerns here is if you go through multiple layers of public hearings for multiple steps of a development, then that time can add up to 18 months, 2 years, whereas an administrative review typically is quicker.
It essentially circumvents the quasi-legal process for an administrative process
Correct.
because apparently we're mouth breathers and we can't make proper decisions. And so the Central Planning Commission has decided that they're gonna skip us because we don't know enough.
Are you quoting Frank Zappa?
No,
Actually, yeah, you are.
okay. But it just seems very condescending and counterproductive because on one hand, we're supposed to use a quasi-legal process to approve or disapprove development, but then the Denver is saying you're not moving fast enough when we're going through the process that they established, and so they're establishing a new process that circumvents everything, presumably to go faster, because going faster is always
Cheaper.
and
More affordable.
and well, but you know, nothing bad happens when you go fast. It just seems counterproductive, but okay.
All right, so we have until December 2027. I'm sure there'll be examples of this coming up. We have to just keep an eye out on it. So I don't think we need to worry about it right now.
I would just add that the information that was presented to you tonight was also given to Lakota Group and the housing arm of that consultant group, and that will be included in depth within the Monument 2040 draft document. So you'll have many times to take a bite at this apple.
From what perspective will it be included?
Uh,
That we need to comply with it?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, it's our document. Or I should say your document.
Right.
And you'll see it in draft form. We will have this conversation again, and we'll make sure that the community is represented in its housing plan is drawn up in a manner that the community wants it to be drawn up. So
The reason why I bring it up is because actually it's not the council's document. It's the planning commission's document. We don't get a say. So if you put it in there and you don't have consensus from the council that we agree with this, that'll be a problem.
ultimately, you will be adopting it. So yes, the Plan Commission is going to be filtering and reviewing and is a major piece to this. But they'll be using the comprehensive plan long into the future. But you will be approving it. So you will have the ability to send it back if you have questions in pieces or sections. And again, so it's the community's plan. We're going to be using it for many things for years to come. And we'd hate to have it put up on the shelf and not used. So we'll make sure that you understand what's in there and what the implications of what's being stated.
Okay. All right, then thank you, Doug, for putting that together and the presentation. Good job. Next up,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
everybody's favorite topic in the region is data centers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good evening. Jenna Gorney, Senior Planner in our Planning Department. So I do have a very brief presentation for you. Of course, keep in mind, it's at a 50,000 foot level. My ultimate goal at the end of the presentation is to kind of have a discussion to understand where staff should go as far as maybe drafting some regulatory policies or the timing of when we would like to do that. And it would be nice to not be thinking about this conversation in a bit of a silo. So I'm needing your direction on where we should take this and the timing of that. So with that, as you know, this conversation has been an underlying hum across the Front Range. Over the past couple years, local governments across Colorado's Front Range have experienced an sharp increase in requests and proposals related to data centers. While Monument doesn't currently have any formal applications, regional activity, legislative changes, and recent community discussions have highlighted questions about how this emerging use would be evaluated here in Monument if proposed. Because Monument's land development code doesn't specifically regulate this specific use, the staff initiated this discussion to ensure that the town is prepared to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively based on any particular application. So data centers differ substantially from traditional industrial or commercial development. As we know, they tend to operate continuously, employ relatively few employees, and rely heavily on electricity, water, and specialized mechanical systems to operate. While they can represent significant capital investment due to, capital investment, they also introduce infrastructure demands that may exceed those associated with more conventional land uses in a community like ours, where we have finite utility capacity and sensitive environmental conditions.
Oh, there we go.
I gotcha. That was just my intro.
Oh, very good.
We're good.
Where you were going.
The intent of the brief conversation today is to provide council with some very high-level information on how data centers function, what type of impacts they may have on utilities, public services, land use capacity, fiscal balance, and how other communities are responding to similar pressures. Recent actions by peer jurisdictions, including temporary moratorium, new regulatory framework, and even approval of those administratively. These highlight the importance of our deliberate planning today before that interest accelerates locally. Staff's goal is to seek guidance from town council on how we should proceed for you. Options include defining and regulating data centers through future code updates in tandem with our comprehensive plan, or we could also initiate interim safeguards that would allow time for initial analysis, agency coordination, and public engagement. Data centers themselves are facilities designed to house computer servers and related infrastructure used to process, store, and transmit digital data information, and may serve a single organization, host multiple clients, support large-scale and artificial intelligence platforms, or operate as smaller facilities. Physically, data centers are generally large buildings with low human capacity or low human occupancy, extensive mechanical and electrical systems, and continuous 24-hour operations, and relatively limited on-site employment as compared to their overall building size. However, there are several emerging data centers not to be forgotten. These often include co-location and smaller data centers about 10,000 square feet called edge centers. Unlike traditional industrial uses, data centers generate minimal truck traffic once they're operational. However, they consume significant amounts of electricity, primarily to power servers, cooling systems, and backup generators, with projections indicating that their energy use could rise dramatically in the coming years. Because code doesn't currently regulate and define data centers or have use-specific standards in place, staff could have challenges in applying development standards related to noise, buffering, building mass, and utility impacts. So under current code, this kind of use would likely be located in an industrial zoning district, and we wouldn't have any additional use-related standards to protect the community. Electricity demand is typically the most significant infrastructure impact associated with data centers. Even mid-sized facilities can require power loads equivalent to thousands of residential uses. These demands often necessitate dedicated substations, transmission upgrades, and long-term service agreements with utility companies. The town of Monument is served by Mountain View Electric Association, a not-for-profit, member-owned electric cooperative that operates a rural and semi-rural electrical distribution system designed to serve residential and small to mid-scale commercial lots or loads rather than large industrial scale. MVEA's system capacity is shaped by the cooperative's large geographic service area, low consumer density, and reliance on regional power supply and transmission providers. Conversely, data centers are large load electrical users. They pose challenges related to grid capacity, reliability, and equitable cost sharing. And these concerns are highlighted in smaller markets like ours, where electrical infrastructure often has less flexibility ultimately. Regarding water, while some newer facilities are air-cooled or hybrid cooling systems, many data centers still consume significant amounts of water for cooling and equipment operations. Water use is continuous rather than seasonal and may include consumptive losses depending on system design. The town of Monument's municipal water source relies on wells drawing from the Denver Basin aquifers and has a finite production capacity serving an established customer base. In the context of ongoing drought conditions and long-term water supply planning, high-volume industrial water uses raise important questions regarding sustainability, priority of use, and growth allocation. Wastewater and stormwater can also be a big topic of concern. Data centers' cooling processes may generate wastewater through system blowdown, which contains treatment chemicals and requires careful management. Large building footprints also increases impervious surfaces, and of course that could affect our stormwater runoff, drainage infrastructure, and downstream water quality, which is of huge importance for monuments. Additionally, data centers present unique public safety considerations that differ from traditional commercial or industrial uses. These facilities often contain lithium-ion battery systems, diesel backup generators, and on-site fuel storage to ensure uninterrupted operations. Fire suppression systems often use clean agents rather than water, which may influence emergency response strategies. Monument's location within a wildland-urban interface and its reliance on regional fire protection services highlights the importance of understanding whether existing emergency response capacity is appropriate or we would need to up this kind of capacity. With a relatively small municipal boundary, the end of life and decommissioning is also of concern. Data center buildings are highly specialized, and they may be difficult to adapt and reuse once vacated. In addition, dedicated utility infrastructure constructed to serve a facility could become stranded if the use ceases to operate. Decommissioning considerations include the removal of hazardous materials, fuel storage systems, and battery infrastructure. Some communities address these risks through financial securities or bonding requirements to ensure that the site restoration and infrastructure mitigation are in place. Also ranking high in the importance is the huge electricity and ranking high in capacity to those two is the delicate nature of land use compatibility, which is a huge part of that conversation. And we are seeing that playing out in our neighboring communities. Monument's development pattern includes established residential neighborhoods, open space, proximity to forest lands. Ensuring appropriate buffering, building designs, and location relative to these residential uses would be critical. Data centers often contribute substantial property tax revenue due to high value of the building and equipment. However, they generate typically minimal sales tax and rely heavily on few long-term employees as compared to the physical size and infrastructure demands. For a town like Monument, which emphasizes balanced growth and fiscal stewardship, understanding the net fiscal impacts is super important, monumentally important.
She had to go.
I just thought of that. Some options that can be considered include incentives or disincentives that can impact design, such as tax incentives. These tax abatements could be paired with community benefit requirement that could require some help in building out our downtown development district or infrastructure, roads, any item like that we would require. Other tax benefits, downtown development. I'm ahead of myself. Recent data center proposals along the front range and in Utah have generated significant public concern. particularly related to the perceived incompatibility with surrounding neighborhoods. These responses underscore the importance of transparency, early public feedback, and clear regulatory expectations. Monument has consistently emphasized its small town identity, quality of life, and natural setting. Any consideration of new high-intensity infrastructure must account for these community values and the expectation of the residents that we have set. Several Front Range jurisdictions, including Larimer County and the City and County of Denver, have been evaluating new data center development recently. The City and County of Denver recently, as of May 18th, adopted a moratorium for these uses. Larimer County has already adopted a moratorium that's in effect until August of this year. And these moratoria are enacted to allow for further research. They allow time, public input, and the staff the appropriate amount of time to research and develop land use code regulations. Alternatively, our community in Colorado Springs have just recently approved a recent project administratively. So there are a couple of regulatory options we could consider. So as mentioned, currently we don't have any applications for new data centers. Those are focused more in the northern and eastern rural Colorado areas. With that, it does allow us a little time to consider what we want to do. And this slide highlights a couple of options that we have. The first option would be staff drafting a use by right policy, where the data center use, of course, would be defined in any case. Here, we would define the use. We would evaluate which zoning districts it would be appropriate in and apply specific use-related standards such that those uses would be permitted use by right in those locations. Additionally, we could do a data center overlay, identify specific locations within that overlay boundary where we would consider data centers as an appropriate and buffered and good use in those locations. Equally, we would develop use-related standards in that option as well. The overlay would be heard by Planning Commission and considered by Town Council. The overlay option has been considered in several communities, Loudoun County, Virginia, Chandler, Mesa, Arizona, Prince William County, Virginia. So this is an option. It's a little bit more cumbersome of an option, but does, in my opinion, give you a little bit more granular option for choosing where these uses may be appropriate. Another option we could do is start working towards writing policy that it could be a conditional use in which it would come before Planning Commission and Town Council. Again, they would have to meet the established criteria for a conditional use, as well as any use-related standards we would put in play for buffering, landscaping, all of those things that we would like, site lighting, noise standards, any of those things that we would want to write in there. That's the option that would take us through a public hearing as well. And then finally, another option is we could enact a moratorium. The moratorium within which we would identify a timeline for when we would have code drafted for this particular use to put in place. That kind of lays out a few options. The moratorium is an option. I would say my slight hesitation as staff with that is, because I've experienced this in other communities, is it starts a clock. And at the end of that clock, you need to have something drafted. And in the event that we may want to use some time wisely and evaluate how things happen in other communities and do a great public outreach program and do some good research, it's something we would want to put good thought to before we consider a moratorium. I did have this presentation with Planning Commission on May 13th, and the recommended action there was that they would put forward a recommendation that staff come back in tandem with the comprehensive plan update with a drafted text amendment to the code that would likely have that as a conditional use. And so today we are pulling that recommended motion forward as well, and really requesting of Town Council the same item, that we are tasked with coming back in front of you in tandem with the updates to our comprehensive plan and Title 18 update, and having a formulated land use approach to this item. We don't want this to go under the radar and not act. I just am looking for a little direction on what the voices would like to hear. I'm open for questions. That's the end of my presentation. I'm sorry?
Your crystal ball is broken?
I have a very personal crystal ball.
Go ahead.
I have a question on
Yes,
your
please.
recommended, on your next steps, regulatory options. Why is there not one that says ban data centers? I mean,
It could be, that's something that could happen potentially at the end of a moratorium if we wanted to act quickly with a moratorium ordinance. That could be, let's say, hypothetically, we 6 months or a year put a moratorium in place. If at the end of that time period, it was workshopped and decided that we want to ban data centers, then that would be an option. I would highly recommend that you direct staff to do much research before doing an outright ban of a specific use when we can be a little bit more granular and measured in our actions.
So Monument's done its share already, I feel. We have giant warehouses all over the place. Right.
yeah,
I mean, we've done our share. We don't, practically speaking, we don't have any place that fits for these. There is going to be no more giant warehouses in Falcon Commerce Center. I think they have one more place that they could put something, but we have a 250-ish thousand square foot facility sitting there for which we get property tax for, and for which we don't have personal property tax or, use tax on the materials that sit inside. So we don't have the water. We can't provide it. MVEA can't provide the power currently. These are noise generators, they're pollution generators, they're heat generators. They, pull down property values. All of this stuff is pretty well documented. 2/3 of these since 2022 are in water stressed areas. I've read a lot about these. There are places that fit, and Monument's not it. And I'm 100% on board for just prohibiting the use anywhere. I don't even know where they would go.
As you ask where would they go, my mind is thinking as uses, flux and leave a particular building space, retrofitting that space, kind of what's happening in our neighboring community. The reuse of an existing structure could happen, maybe not immediately, but 5 years down the road could be possible.
But that's a pretty big structure. Isn't that where you used to work?
which one?
Oh, it's in Intel, right? It's the old Intel building.
No, I worked around, so I was going to say, I spent most of my adult life in and around data centers. They are loud and obnoxious facilities. Very few people work in them. Hewlett Packard knocked down an entire campus and left only the data centers off Rockrimmon. There's nobody that works in them. And there was a very beautiful open space there up until recently, where they took the open space and repurposed it for another data center. Huh?
No, I just,
It's right, yeah,
I
right
think-
behind the Marriott.
I think the cons for data center in Monument outweigh the pros by far. And I don't think the community would want them.
If it brought,
I've
150 to 300 jobs, because they were going to co-locate office space where people are getting paid 6-figure incomes to maintain the data center, monitor it, manage it, all the applications that are on, but that's not what happens. All of those jobs are not even in this country.
Is it possible, I see where your brain is going, that maybe we could, I'm thinking of some additional potential community benefit. And I'm just being the devil's advocate here. Instead of, passing up those possibilities, maybe within our research, potentially limiting size. We only allow them of a particular size and only allow a co-location. I'm just shooting out ideas here.
And I'm going to shoot down all those ideas and make it easy on staff. 1 year more moratorium, and then Kennex
Flat out ban.
ban any data center coming into the town of Monument.
I mean, at the low end, the way I'm looking at this stuff that I've seen, and I don't know how big these are, but the low standards that I've seen are somewhere in the 300,000 gallons of water a day.
You're in a semi-arid climate, and having one of these in the town of Monument will increase the temperature. It's a proven fact. The amount of water that it would have to consume, that we're already struggling to figure out water sources, as the surrounding areas, not only surrounding states of Colorado, are in a legal battle for water.
Yeah, right.
There's too many cons to this. I really don't want to spend or exhaust a lot of energy reviewing this. And I don't want staff to have to go through a juggernaut of hoops to try to figure out, well, here's a possibility.
You guys have got a lot of projects as it is.
Staff has got, we can direct staff to do much better for the town overall, vice this one topic.
I can appreciate that, and I thank you for considering our time. I know that I walked away with this question, and I have a ton more. I have a mountain more, and my brain is always kind of trying to think of, both sides. I want to understand both sides and what we could potentially gain from a project like this. And I watch social media. I see these things. We're tapped in. We know what's going on, but I have not put on my research cap enough to know what of those questions and concerns are real concerns and to what level and what may be perceived. Aside from the water, I feel like that's a verified concern. I don't know what I don't know kind of thing, which is why you all are here.
In my professional capacity, I like to work in the realm of how do we get to yes? And in that process, you will quickly find out you can't, and it's a no. And you're answering all those questions. And having done some research and due diligence, and now reading about the not only in other states where they're putting these, which in my opinion are terrible locations, but now reading about Garden of the Gods and all that's coming about that. And somewhere down the road, these things are going to be in, well, what they're projecting is to be in space anyway. So now what are you going to do with all that? If you build one here, then what are you going to do with all that stuff that's left?
That's my question as well. The technology is advancing so quickly. What will the technology advance to in 5 or 10 years? Will it still need a facility of this size and magnitude to operate? So I have the same question.
And we can always come back, right? I mean,
yeah.
At some point we find out that they've got a new technology and it's not using up all these resources and creating all these issues. We can change the code.
That's a great point. Nothing is forever.
It's just right now. I feel pretty strongly that we've done our fair share in taking in stuff that nobody else wants.
And I concur with Mayor Pro Tem King, in addition to the fact that, you brought up to me the perfect reason for doing that or not doing it is where are we going to put it? We have no place to put it.
I also like where you're going there. And again, I'm not advocating one way or another. I'm trying just to be sure that we're not leaving anything on the table. As far as the where would we put it? That would be something that I would want to delve into more, is really look at our map and evaluate in the option of an overlay. Is there somewhere that's appropriate, that if it was located there, what kind of community benefits could we draw from someone locating in a chosen location from us? And then what kind of benefit could we get from them? What could we have them build?
I'd rather see an overlay done of a sports complex for the community to use, vice worrying about a data center.
Maybe we could get the data center to pay for that. So I'm definitely a differing opinion here. I am. I think we should not sit back and, end up being a passive host community like a lot of towns have. It's happened all over the place. I think all the concerns you guys have raised should be addressed in code, right? I think that the way of the future, data centers should be part of our infrastructure. They shouldn't be these standalone buildings that are sitting there as a nuisance. They're necessary. We need them. Everybody's using it every day. We're using it right now. Just simply rejecting it, I think, is a foolish mistake. I think we should face it head on. Use it, like I said, as part of our community infrastructure, use it to strengthen the grid, protect water, improve broadband, increase public access, and find a way to produce a measurable public benefit. And I think we would be at the forefront of the entire country if we could do that. Because right now, it's all negative, right? There's all this bad press about. If you do a lot of research in this, they have micro units now that don't make much use. They're self-contained. They're basically a 40-foot Connex. So if you really look into it, there's
They're also
lots
putting
of
them in
different
people's houses.
options. Yeah, there's new builds where they're actually
But that's
incorporating
not
this.
really a data center. That's
No, it's pieces of a
It's-
data
it's-
center that's spread throughout a
It's
community.
compute,
Yeah.
and that compute is going to, well, I think to your point, what we need to be concerned about though is, a home use cannot become a data center.
Right.
And there should be code wrapped around that.
That's kind of my point is we should, and a moratorium may be the answer, but we should, instead of just moratorium and saying no, let's put some intelligent thought into this and some rational
and
thought
this is
rather
where
than
I think
suppressed thought.
I like Jenna's approach where we put a moratorium on it, allow the staff to research it in depth. Because I think most people, when you say data center, they have this image of this massive 300,000 square foot facility.
those are small, 300,000 square.
Got it. My point being is if you allow the staff to do a little bit of research, what you're going to find is that there are small and micro data centers that are starting to become more, I wouldn't say popular, but clouds are leaning more towards micro and small data centers. And so I think if we allow staff to do the research, and what you're going to find is that they're not going to come in with the uber large data center. They're going to show up with, oh, we only want a couple of small data centers, and then we're not going to be prepared, to Chad's point. So I think if we give the staff time to do research, and this is going to sound bad, educate themselves and us, but we need education. We need information so that we understand soup to nuts what this data center thing is, because it is evolving rapidly. So here's the other thing to put it into context. Open source reporting. So I'm not relying on anything classified. Open source reporting says that Space Force is due to double in size. In this area alone, we have 4 Space Force bases, if you include Buckley. All of those are due to probably double, if not triple in size in terms of squadrons and units. There is more and more reliance on AI and cloud-based computing to conduct space operations. And so what that means to us in the Front Range is that we're going to see data centers. The one that was just recently approved is just the beginning. So we need to allow, I really strongly suggest that we allow the staff to educate themselves, to then allow them to educate us on what it means for these data centers, not just the uber ones, the micro and the small, so that then we can craft proper guidance to them to say, I think we need to disallow super large data centers, but if they want to bring whatever X types of data centers, this is the code that you're going to follow. You're going to do water reuse. You're going to whatever it X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. But we have to do it from a position of informed understanding of what it actually means to bring a data center to the Front Range. And I think it starts with getting allowing the staff to inform themselves on what it means when someone comes up to their door and says, we want to bring a data center here. I think.
I think if they're gonna have, with all the different military installations, they may have their own data centers put on that installation for security purposes. I'm gonna let you know, I'm dead set against having any type of data center come into Monument because of the location and proximity to the homes. You're talking about what land is left to develop inside like a 4 miles, radius. It's just, so you're gonna put another building up next to I-25 and it's another warehouse, whatever size, or it's gonna take over an empty building. I go back to, regardless, the cons outweigh the pros. No job growth for the town. You're gonna take all these hits environmentally with wastewater, pollutants, all these other things that have to be mitigated and worked on. And you're talking about infrastructure. Well, we're still trying to build parts of our infrastructure that we need, and we need to secure other parts of our infrastructure first before we have to even worry about this. So that's why I'm all for moratorium. I am a hard no, period. But it can go back to, if technology increases because it's happening so rapidly, maybe we can entertain it down the road. But right now, I believe staff's focus should be on other projects along with our focus and the planning commission's focus on other things rather than this, when we can just say, time out, put it to the side. We have other priorities that our residents need. Vice versa.
Let me ask a question. How is this applicable to our strategic plan that we set? Is there anything, without having to make a stretch, that this ties into our core elements that we put in our objectives? Because if it doesn't, then I'm for the moratorium until the next time an objective session comes up to do the strategic objectives. And if the next council, the next board members that are sitting here doesn't think it's something that we want to consider as strategic, then it becomes a ban. Because the focus that the staff's supposed to be having is implementing the strategic objectives of the plan.
Sure.
And I don't recall us talking about data centers when we put this together.
I would say that your strategic objectives focused on maintaining community character and responsible community development, however that may be viewed. And so that may be a moment in time, that may be now a responsible choice for now. And as you mentioned, it could be revisited in the future. I will simply say, I don't know what I don't know. I think there might be an option to meet everyone's interest here by starting out with a moratorium and letting staff craft options for you to consider. And at the end, if no one likes those options, vote them down. Or again, you could go the option of, it's not worth staff's time and we would like to focus our priorities elsewhere. All valid. So, and that's why I'm before you today.
Any additional thoughts?
Well, I don't see the upside personally. I would rather let somebody else be the guinea pig and not end up with something that we get that we're going to struggle with trying to figure out how to deal with. And these micro ones may be coming. I do see some stuff about that, but mostly I see $45 billion ones getting built. And the CapEx on these from Microsoft and Amazon and all those big hyperscalers are bigger the better. I also do believe that the trajectory is to try to get into space, and maybe that'll take 10 or 15 years, but then we're left with something here. I'm not opposed to a moratorium. I just don't want you to do a bunch of work and it comes back here and just gets turned down anyway. I don't see the path personally. And I don't want to create another job for you guys.
And I'm with you.
I think if we put in a moratorium and focus the staff on, to me, I think the more likely in our area, in the town of Monument, call it the Trilix area, the more likely, because of, call it lack of space, is probably small and micro data centers. So if you start having residents setting up micro data centers in their homes, what is the water and electricity pull if you have more and more residents getting paid to house and host micro data centers? We don't know that answer. How do you craft code to manage that? How do you craft code for small data centers? What is the footprint of a small, anybody know? Raise your hand. What's the footprint of a small data center? I have no idea.
Well, but there's not a use for it, so you can't do it at home.
That,
Who's
no,
gonna
there is
know?
a use for it because they exist.
No, I mean,
Is it-
there's no use table for
Yeah.
doing that in your home.
Well,
So
and
if you're gonna increase your power consumption and your water consumption when we are on water restrictions now, because you're doing it at your home, however that's set up, you're not permitted to do that.
And Mike,
well, how would you know?
Yeah.
Jen,
What's the go ahead.
yeah, Jen, if I may, I think the message is really clear. You want to make sure that we're not, we need to restrict, if anything, restricted to the point where it almost can't happen unless it's the perfect scenario. So I think we have to do that anyway as part of our Chapter 18 update. We're going to be looking through all those things. We'll take a close look at that. You can't just outlaw a use. I mean, we've gone through that before. Adult uses and so on. You have to restrict them. Right now, it's not a listed use. But because of that, it's very easy for someone to say that it can get fit into industrial or something else. So I think what we need to do is define it and establish some reasonable restrictions. I take that back. Just create some restrictions having to do with economic development, water, electricity,
Noise.
and adjacent land uses. At the same time, we want to empower you as a council to accept something when it does, when it's correct, when it's right, when it's in supports. So we might not believe that it exists today, that perfect data center scenario, but we want to make sure that you have the power to make a decision later on. So we'll work with with Bob Cole's office to make sure that we draft that in a way that maintains control for the community and protects the community, and we'll bring it back to you. But I hear the passion. We're not going to cross that. We're going to figure out how to best address it in the code and then bring it back to you so you can adopt it and move forward. And no, don't worry. We're so busy on other things that we won't forget them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
All that. And so
By the way, thanks for bringing up all the negative points.
Oh, I was trying to highlight the good. I tried to highlight the good.
I mean, I had them all, the same ones written down anyway, but my point is you didn't come in here and with an agenda to try to sell this. You came in with these are the bad things and these are maybe the potential good things. And so thanks for doing that.
Let me be clear, as far as our direction, we are not taking any measures in the interim. We are just writing the code updates and including this as a regulated use for evaluation and working through that potential code at that time. Am I understanding that?
I think there should be a
I don't
moratorium.
know that you're.
A moratorium for now. Okay.
The
And
longest amount of time we are legally allowed to.
and that was my question. I'm familiar with moratorium in Utah, have not yet worked through one in Colorado. Does Colorado State Code give us a maximum time for moratorium? Okay, so
We'll
thinking
bring it
about,
back.
10 years.
We can. We'll bring one back to you.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah, let's think
preventing
about the
anybody from doing something because it's not a use. So
someone may find a way to argue that it's light industrial. Yeah,
well, that's why I'm saying right now, currently, there's no applications in. There's a moratorium on nobody can cry foul because there's no applications.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
And in the news tomorrow, it'll say we banned them. But anyway,
I appreciate your direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just had just one quick general comment too. It's not really directed towards you, Jenna, but like as a country, we have got to change our mindset. I'm not saying Monument's the right place for a data center. The Front Range is the right place for a data center. But I'll tell you right now, China's putting them everywhere.
I'm not opposed to data centers.
No, no, I'm
I'm
just
opposed
saying.
to them.
It's
here.
a sea change. We need, because
And
there's
it's
so
not a
much
NIMBY
negative
thing.
thought.
We really don't have the ability.
No, I agree, actually. I do actually agree.
Right.
But I think we really need to face it head on.
Well, there
and
are
be
plenty of
innovators.
places that want them because they do have use taxes.
I'm
And
not
they
seeing that
get,
anywhere. They're fighting them everywhere.
and they, yeah, well,
They
for
are.
sure, but there are places that want them, small places that don't have any other business. And they have use tax as part of their, annual property tax collections, and they're making money off of them. We don't have that. We just have the building property
I
tax.
think we're going to find though, from a technology standpoint, is that they're going to be everywhere. They're literally going to be everywhere. Oh,
hey, I tried to get a local developer to get us a skiff on a
Yep.
piece of land that would be a perfect place for it, Class
Skip
A
would be
space.
perfect.
And that's not what we're seeing. Which is weird because
Good to have Skip.
a year ago, when I went to one of the symposium offsites, can't remember the name of the building, but anyway, they've said that Colorado Springs, Pikes Peak region is short 1 million square feet of skiff space. And that's not on the bases, that's out in town,
Outside, yep.
right? So here we have 40 acres available to put a skiff that's right on the northern edge of USAFA, and nope, no takers. So it's not like we haven't tried. I know I tried, and I don't know that the landowner did, but we're gonna see something coming at us shortly that's not a skiff. Or more stuff that we already have. Okay, next up is, we do not have resolutions tonight, nor do we not have any ordinances. So future agenda items.
I do not have any tonight.
Holy moly, no future.
Okay, cool. Madeline must have forgot the one she was gonna ask.
All right, we
I
are,
forgot one.
Sorry, it's mine, really. The new candidate information session that we're planning as part of one of the strategic objectives has been scheduled for July 28th at 5:30 to 7. We have some presentations from staff lined up, but I would really like 1 or 2, but not more than 2 council members, if you're willing to volunteer to kind of just do a live question and answer session with the prospective new candidates. Mayor LeKind, yes, and if anyone else
I'm happy to jump in there.
wants to, but we want to kind of limit it at 2 because we don't want to make it an open meeting. So, I mean, yeah, that would be
They
great.
can throw rocks at both
So
of
I
us.
have mayor and mayor pro tem. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yes, it is. I just didn't write it down on this piece of paper.
okay, so July 28th here, 5:30 to 7.
Correct.
And
then-
you will be cooking hot dogs?
Sure. No, no hot
They're gonna
dogs.
be throwing things at us. I'm not providing dinner too. All right,
Appreciate that.
yep. Town manager report.
Well, I'll run through it quickly in the interest of time, but again, May was very busy. I appreciate all of you attending all of the events that you were able to attend. We had many community events. Really like to thank our Public Works team and Portia for another great Memorial Day ceremony. The weather was actually beautiful for once too. So thank you for attending. Thank you for the public for attending. Appreciate planning's efforts and Portia's efforts again on our engagement with the community to rename Dock Close Road. That was a really fun event. We've been working hard on implementing our inventory system, our records management system, as well as the 2026 budget amendment and the 2026 budget planning. Streets, parks, water facilities have all been doing a lot of maintenance and repairs around town, potholes, sinkholes, parks projects, water projects. The water team has also been working on some future water supply projects as well. We've been working on, Laura actually has been becoming an ADA coordinator in order to support our ADA transition plan that we've recently adopted. And some upcoming events, PD will be hosting Cops and Bobbers at Monument Lake this coming Saturday. Concerts in the park every Wednesday. And then, of course, our big 4th of July celebration coming up on the 4th of July. I'm happy to answer any questions or clarify anything, but wanted to keep it short and sweet.
Anything?
Well, great job as always.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Council comments?
Great report.
No, I meant the next section, council
Oh.
comments.
Great report.
I would like to shout out to our first monumental birthday bash.
That was great.
If you had not had the opportunity to attend, I think you missed the best concert that's ever been thrown in Limbach Park. Sound quality, the lighting was easily on par with anything you've seen professional in a small, especially in a venue that's so small, right? I know that Tallboy Marketing and what's the name of the sound? It's something Salt Creek Productions. What they were able to accomplish was well, I said it, I don't know that it got quoted the way I wanted it, but it was definitely something along the lines of giving Ford Amphitheater a run for their money.
Yeah, you did.
Did I say? I did say it, but
You
I'll,
did.
yep. And it was even louder than the previous night's concert, but it didn't sound louder. So we hope we'll get the same kind of quality in the coming years. And I think we're going to see some budget items, I was told, for the 150th, we're going to start putting aside for it. So great job to the parks crew for getting things working there. And next year, you guys have to put it on your calendar for the birthday bash. It was pretty cool.
So what's gonna go on the paper is Mayor LaKind wants Ford Amphitheater and Monument.
Well, that's only because we're banning data centers. So now we have this extra space to put Ford Amphitheater.
Well, rejected the data center, so you can have this.
You gotta pick your battles, man.
He wants it called the LaKind
No,
Amphitheater.
no, I do not want that. Ford is good. All right, anything else? Any other comments from council? You're not going to report on how much gelato you ate
Do you want me?
while you were walking around
No.
Italy?
We tried our hardest to eat our weight in pizza, pasta, and pastries. And I think we came close. I've never eaten so good. Yeah.
Anybody else? Senna? Nothing? All right. Then, that said, I will move to go into executive session pursuant to 24-6-4024F, Colorado Revised Statute for personal matter concerning the town manager's performance evaluation, who has been notified of the executive session and consented to it, and executive session pursuant to 24-6-4024E and 24-6-4024B CRS for determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators, and for a conference with the town attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal questions relating to proposals for future town water supplies.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Oh, and is there a reason for us to come back? You tell us. And we will come back and we'll adjourn in open session. We've come out of executive session. We have no form. Favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.